Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan video. In this video we're going to take a look at the 2024 Dokkan Battle Progression Guide and basically talk about how you should start Dokkan and basically make your way through it all the way to endgame content, what you should start with, what you should take on, etc., and what your team should kind of look like throughout each of these phases. Now when you start the game, you basically start with the quest mode. You'll also have a set of missions called the Greatest Warrior missions. These allow you to obtain a free-to-play physical LR Goku. It's highly imperative that you basically complete the quest mode, or do as much of the quest mode as possible, whilst also finishing the missions for this Goku. The process in doing so will obtain you a couple free-to-play units, but most importantly will give you this Goku in a full LR state with rainbow orbs, which is your biggest opening start kind of power boost to allow you to really start to farm other content. Your team will kind of look like this, whereby you just basically have a whole bunch of random units that you've either picked up from friend summons or maybe general banner summons, but basically what you're supposed to do here is do quest mode, do the daily growth events, do the daily events, do things like the pan event, rank up your account, and essentially just build up a batch of stones. We're talking in the first couple of chapters of story mode should go pretty easily, finishing the Greatest Warrior missions, and you'll be in a position where if you do the daily events as well, you'll have picked up quite a bit of account XP. You'll be like rank 45, 50, you have plenty of stamina, and also you'll basically be absolutely ready to take on the rest of the game. So this is kind of your starting point. Please obviously do things within discretion, and try to obviously finish the events you need to finish, more so than just trying to do everything for no reason. But yeah, this is definitely the one time where those early events are a good power boost. Now your next step is kind of your mid game, so building your still early game but building your first team. To do so, you're going to need to use some of those stones. Now, it doesn't matter what banner is up. No matter what happens, you have plenty of stones to get in the game. When you've just started, you will have literal thousands of stones to obtain. You don't need to worry too much. Start summoning. Summon until you get either a DFE, which is a Dokkan Fest exclusive, an LR character, or any unit basically that has a pretty good lead. It doesn't have to necessarily be a featured unit. It could be an unfeatured unit that even just has 120% towards a category or something, but basically anything whereby you have a decent lead. Once you have that lead, that will then give you direction on what to do next. So once you have your lead, your next step will be to isolate and identify any free-to-play characters that can augment your team. For the sake of this video, I'm pretending I got a Goku's family lead. And so what I first do is then go to the story events, the event story section, and I look for story events that drop free-to-play characters that fit in my team. So ideally that is Goku's family characters, and making sure that they obviously fit in my team. If you haven't picked up a good lead yet, you can still do this by using the Goku as your lead. It's just, not really the same. But you want to really work through this. Try and avoid super strikes. They're a little bit too difficult for you at this stage. So focus mainly on story events. And the reason we're doing story events is because you can max out a unit's super attack level. You can open up their hidden potential paths, and they're very easy and accessible. So story events, DB story as well. Clearing these for stones is also great, but right now start mainly with just the ones that give you units that you can use. Dokkan awaken those free-to-play units, and then you're pretty much on your route to starting to Dokkan awaken your actual summonable units. Of course, you won't have your free-to-play units probably easy 8, but if you can manage to do it, you definitely should. Extreme easy areas for free-to-play units usually incorporate mainly free-to-play units, so you should be able to get it done. At this point, you'll have a mixture of free-to-play units and some summonable units. Maybe you're lucky and got an LR, but the unit you want to start with is your leader. So you want to Dokkan awaken your leader. This will require you to obtain Dokkan awakening medals, which are super duper crucial towards obviously powering up your units. During the course or before you do this though, you need to raise up their super attack levels. The easiest way to do this is with Kais, and the easiest way to get Kais is to complete some of the easier Extreme Z battles. So these are things like the Planetamic Saga Extreme Z battle, the Cell Hell Raid, which is 100 floors, the Fierce battle, Extreme Z battle, and just in general, some of the earlier levels of every Extreme Z battle. Especially some of the super older ones, like the first one with Super Saiyan 3 Goku and that. You can finish the first 5 levels of a lot of Extreme Z battles with very minimal teams. And this will enable you to grab at least 1 or 2 Kais, which will enable you to boost your characters. Early on, Kais are like the big boost mechanic for a lot of new players. Super attack levels are a huge modifier to damage, so making sure that you have Kais is kind of a crucial part of your initial progress. So doing these Extreme Z battles, these free-to-play Extreme Z battles for like Goku Jr. and that, are very crucial towards obtaining Kais and using those Kais to really just kind of augment your team. So it's a very, very crucial step. At this point as well, and we obviously now want to do the Dokkan events. So once you have your super attacks fully leveled, you then want to move on to Dokkan events. It's okay, especially in the beginning, to do the lower difficulty first. So you don't have to jump straight into the super or Z hard, except, well, you do have to jump into Z hard, but you don't have to do the highest difficulty first. Focus on making sure that you get all the medals necessary to awaken your leader, and once your leader is ready and awakened, then you're basically good to go. Once you have Dokkan awakened all of your units, you are basically at your biggest spike point, and now it's time to really kind of move into refining your team. But before you do that, while you're doing this, make sure that you work on units like Team Bardock and Captain Ginyu, as these are very crucial towards your overall box and performance. They're very strong free-to-play units, so grabbing them is important. By now, your team should look like this, whereby you have your units Dokkan awakened, and basically you're now ready to begin the refining process and building out your box. So before you can begin Endgame, you actually need to work on obtaining a couple of things and really fleshing out your characters, but also gaining resources, getting more stones, getting more Kais, more hidden potential orbs, and to do this is pretty straightforward. Firstly, we want to do Extreme Z areas, especially for the free-to-play characters. We want to do Extreme Z areas and finish up all of our free-to-play characters. So doing the story events, grabbing every single free-to-play character we can, doing their Extreme Z areas while they're up, and basically maxing out free-to-play units is pretty good. Especially at certain times, you can actually pick up close to 20 Extreme Z awakened free-to-play characters. And this will rapidly expand your box and give you a lot of options in your roster. Yes, you won't be able to rainbow them like I have them, but just having them at SA10 and with a decent, being Extremely Awakened is pretty much good enough for the most part, especially some of the LRs. So it's a very good mechanism to use to obviously fill out your box. You can also at this point start with Super Strikes because they are starting to become more accessible to you, and continue to push through Extreme Z battles, continuing to complete more stages, continuing to complete more of the older free-to-play ones, etc., and basically just enabling you to continuously get more Kais and to get more hidden potential orbs. Now, don't invest the hidden potential orbs into the free-to-play units, save them for your summonable units and for your future teams, but it's just important that you note this. The next important step is to rank up our account, so we want to continue doing quest mode and basically pushing ourselves to the rank upon which when we unlock Ultimate Clash. This is going to be a signal that you're nearing the beginning of starting Dokkan's endgame process. It's also important at this point that you consider doing Boss Rush. Boss Rush is a very accessible game mode that drops hundreds and hundreds of Dragon Stones, and you can begin basically as soon as you can finish your first Dokkan event easily. You can go and clean up stones from there quite nicely. So now we want to talk about endgame. So there's kind of 3 phases of endgame. You get your starting endgame, you get your advanced endgame, and you get your late to expert midgame. So starting endgame is essentially once you unlock Ultimate Clash. So unlocking Ultimate Clash is kind of a beginning signal that you're starting to really take on endgame content. Now, Ultimate Clash is going to be difficult, so a great way to work on your box or continue working on your roster of units whilst also obtaining rewards and getting a bit of a taste for the endgame experience is going to be to begin with Super Battle Road, especially the first 10. Now, Super Battle Road up to level 30 is probably what I would consider the starting endgame, but the first 10 stages especially are really good starting points because they make you develop essentially 6 certain typings, so AGL, physical, tech, strength, etc., of each class of units. So you have to have 6 good strength, extreme units, strength, super units, etc. And this helps you a lot for Ultimate Clash, where mono teams are very strong, and so doing this basically prepares you for Ultimate Clash to a certain extent, so the two kind of cross over. Then after that, if you're starting to really wanting to expand, Fighting Legend Goku is your next destination. This requires you to build more stacking units, units that build up over time, different rosters of units. Doing the missions is a great way to expand your roster, and just in general, it's a good event to do to try and push yourself to basically be a little bit more, expansive in terms of your roster. Alongside that as well, there is also the IDBH. It does scale in difficulty, the IDBH, much like SBR, but you can definitely complete the first 5 or 6 and probably handle them quite easily. And again, completing the missions and challenges helps you to isolate and expand areas where you're weak. Then we're looking more at the advanced endgame. Now, the advanced endgame basically is like SBR 31 onwards, starting to do ESBR, and essentially just doing the same content you've been doing, but now doing it a little bit harder. So we're talking category missions, we're talking ESBR, we're talking the Gods of Destruction event, which is an event basically where it's like got a couple gimmicks, the bosses hit quite hard, the teams need to be very strategically designed. It gives you a good taste of like a baby version of Red Zone. Alongside that as well, the upgraded events of Fighting Legend Goku GT and Fighting Legend Vegeta events are obviously great kind of upgraded versions of the Fighting Legend Goku event that require you to further expand upon the type of units that you've been building up in that event. So all of these events are kind of either upgrades of the previous events that you've done, or are steps towards content later on that's going to be harder but similar. Like the Gods event is basically a way to practice for Red Zone. The Epic Collection of Battles is also something you can start off with here, where it's again very similar in that it requires certain categories, but also again kind of pushes you to develop different teams and rosters, and basically expand your rosters to have a bit of a better time. So now we're talking about the expert late game. So now we're talking about the kind of super late game, expert level, hardest events in the game. For these events, you're going to need a team that kind of looks like this. Not this one, a little bit further on. Nope, not this one. A little bit further on. Nope, next one. Okay, perfect. You're going to need a team that looks like this. Multiple in-game LRs, units that are currently in the meta, recently released, probably within the last year or so, and maybe a dupe in them as well. You're also probably going to need to understand the game's mechanics a bit more, so that's definitely going to be something that's pretty helpful. Now, of course, when it comes to this, we're talking Cell Max event, Fighting Spirit event, Red Zone, obviously was something that people will be very familiar with or hearing about, but also the 8th anniversary event is a very tough event, very much falls in line here. Fighting Spirit event, Mortal Will event, the Shadow Dragons event, all of these kind of later game events that require either certain categories, bonus characters, or just super hard. They just hit very hard. We're talking super attacks that hit in excess of 1 million most times. They hit more than 1 million. They hit more than 800,000. They require you to have units that have guard, dodge, damage reduction, all of these things. Basically it is something that's important. Just take note that things like the support memory bonus event, Extreme Z battles, and just continuing to Dokkan Awaken units should always be occurring. And yeah, if you need any more help with how to progress in Dokkan, please let me know in the comments and I'll gladly assist. But for now, that's it from me. Take care and bye.